A warm Escapeverse Live welcome to our guests, Harriet Edge-Partington, Kevin Wu, and Simon Davies. Now, each and every one of them has had an amazing career to date, and just to use their job titles, I don't think sufficiently informs you about how well they know the recruitment industry. So starting off with Simon, do you mind telling us a little bit about what you currently do and the places you've worked before?
Thanks. Well, hi everybody. My name's Simon Davies. I'm the founder and director of DAX, or Digital Arts Exchange, and we're specialist recruiters into VFX, games, animation, and immersive studios. My background is very much in talent acquisition through games and VFX. I spent the best part of 7 years with ILM in London, helping to build out the studio there, as well as time with Eyeline and Scanline. DNEG, you name it, as well as studios like King on the game side. It's always been a fascinating space for me, working with incredibly smart and super creative people. And obviously a lot has changed over the years, but it's always a really exciting and high-paced sort of space to be working in. So it's great to be here to share whatever insights I can.
Thank you, Simon. So you have games, animation, and VFX. Harriet, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I've been in the industry now coming up to 13 years, I think. So my career started at DNEG, and I spent just under 6 years there, where over time I helped with things like the Greenlight scheme, so internships and graduate programs. I looked after the TV division, the film division, the feature animation division, so have kind of little pockets of experience with those areas. And then I was headhunted in 2019 by Union, and I've been there ever since. There was absolutely no recruitment process in place when I joined, so I was lucky enough to be able to build that from scratch. That's my story.
Thank you. Kevin?
I am a rota prep supervisor at BlueBolt, and I've worked in the industry for quite a few years, and before that I was at One of Us, and before that I was in commercial advertising. And I'm part of the recruitment process where I interview people to join the team.
Brilliant. So a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge. I forgot to mention at the beginning, but if any of those of you who are watching in at home and you have any questions, please add them to the Q&A section and we'll answer them at the end of the show. The job market is very brutal right now. What advice could you give to a graduate artist who's waiting to get into the industry? What could they be doing with their time? We'll start off with Harriet.
It is really tough. I don't think we can hide away from that fact. I think the really important thing is that you take job hunting as seriously as doing the job itself. It's really difficult to stay on top of things when you're firing off applications here, there, and everywhere. So create it like a job itself. So track where you are applying, what you're applying for, what date you've applied for it, so that you've got tabs of the appropriate time frame to reach out and ask for an update, or making sure I've already applied to that place, so I don't need to do that until I get a response. And it just makes it a lot easier to manage and feel, hopefully, less overwhelming in an already overwhelming time.
Brilliant advice. Kevin, what would you advise grads do?
I think for me, because I come from the artist point of view, so take a good time to make a really good showreel and be specific about what the jobs you're applying for. If you're applying for rota prep, then make sure your reel is tailored for that. Be proactive on LinkedIn as well, network with recruiters, connect with them, chat with them, comment, and just be part of the industry and community.
Brilliant. Simon, what advice would you give to graduates looking for their first job?
I think all the points that the guys have covered there are spot on. It's very much about it can feel like a tough journey, but lean into the community, the VFX and so should we say creative tech community on platforms like LinkedIn and other places is really active. So don't be afraid to lean into that, talk to people, get advice, and I think really importantly, be really measured and specific with your job applications. As Harriet was saying, make sure that you keep track of where you're applying and things like that, but also make sure you are keeping an eye on the detail. Don't just fire off your CV, to 10 different studios all in one go and hope that something's going to come back. You need to make sure that you are really being very specific towards the roles you're applying for, and make sure if you have a cover letter that you're addressing it to the right person, the right studio, and that kind of thing.
Cover letters were going to be one of the last questions I was going to ask, but it's one of my pet peeves. How do you guys feel about a cover letter that's clearly a template? I'll open up to whoever wants to go first.
Sir or madam?
Yes.
I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I'd much rather have someone that's made the effort to at least submit one than nothing at all, depending on the role. Like, some roles really don't require it, but there are others where it really is your way to justify why you're applying. Prime example is maybe when you're looking to slightly change direction. So maybe you're from an artist background and decided you want to go into production. Your cover letter is your opportunity to explain why you've made that decision. Otherwise, I'm just like, bit of a shrug. But yeah, the key thing is, who are you addressing it to? It takes 2 seconds to find out who a recruiter is for that studio. And then also, as Simon said, make sure you address it to the right company.
Simon, can you sniff out a cover letter template a mile away?
Yeah, I think you can, and again, it's really important to try and be specific, when you're putting a cover letter together. And, I think we live in a world where you get templated emails landing in your inbox every day, and you can spot them. So, personalize it, make sure that it is relevant to the role you're applying for. And it can make a big difference, and it just shows that you've put some actual effort into the application, and you're not just firing something off in a volume application.
This is brilliant. You mentioned the importance of leaning into communities earlier. Do you find many jobs go unadvertised? They go through networking at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
The easy answer is yes. Quite often I'll get told I need to hire X people for a project, and quite often my first port of call is to reach back out to people that have worked with us before, but that's for very specific positions and certain levels. When it's kind of entry-level roles, that is one that I will always advertise, because I want to be encouraging new talent coming through the industry, as opposed to just relying on somebody that's worked with you 3 months before and then for the project rolled off. So yeah, I like to kind of encourage that.
How about you, Kevin?
I think yes and no. A lot of jobs started in-house first, ask about the whole team and who knows someone and who doesn't. And then it's always about the word of mouth, for me. I think people who know someone will recommend that particular person for the job, and they always get first hand on the interview. And unfortunately, that's how it is.
Do you find this is the case, Simon?
I think it's fair to say it's probably better than it was, a number of years ago. I think studios are being a bit more transparent now with a lot of the hiring. I think a while ago, it was very much about who you knew. But we are seeing a lot more roles. You see roles being advertised and things on careers pages, websites, which gives a wider spread of opportunity. But yeah, recommendations and referrals are always going to be a first port of call within a studio. But as Harriet says as well, when you're coming to entry level and emerging talent and things, you will advertise for those opportunities for sure. So I think again, people who are making their way into the industry should really keep their eyes peeled for those roles as they come up.
Absolutely. When artists are applying for work, quite often they have a big body of work. How important is it to tailor and curate the work you submit for that job application?
I think it's really important, because I see and receive so many reels, and quite often they're all quite similar. So it's really important that you stand out for obviously all the right reasons. I would say, there's a range of advice you can give from junior all the way up to senior. But from a junior point of view, Kevin already touched on this, it's making sure that your reel makes sense for the role that you're applying for. So if you're applying for a roto prep position, I don't want to see a reel full of comp. I want to see a reel full of roto prep, and maybe with one comp example, because that is the direction you would go down. Similar for match move. You know, yes, your goal is to maybe one day be a CG generalist, but the role that you're coming in as is a match mover. So therefore show examples of the tracking, and then again, one maybe snippet of the role that you're interested in progressing into. From a more experienced point of view, again, thinking about what work that studio does. I don't want to see a reel full of animation or games work, because that's not the type of work we do. So curating it to fit with that studio, which is why it's really important to really understand the companies you're applying for.
Simon, do you find that's the case as well, tailoring your approach?
Yeah, absolutely. And I say this quite often as well. Don't be afraid to have more than one show reel, right? You know, if you have, if you want to be a bit more generalist, you know, but you know maybe you have a really high skill set in, let's say, roto paint, where you could go down the 2D route, you know, create that reel. But then if you want to maybe showcase some of your lighting skills as well, then create a separate reel. But don't try and showcase everything in one place, because then you'll have the people reviewing it sort of scratching their heads and asking, well, which way does this person really want to go? What role are they actually applying for?
Yeah.
How many reels do you guys estimate you may go through in one day when filling a position?
It depends on whether we've actually got vacancies advertised on the website. When it's kind of more of a receiving speculative applications, it definitely quietens down. But, you know, I've experienced it where I've probably reviewed 50 applications a day. And that will be a range of things. So, you know, I have to switch from 2D to 3D to effects. So I try and kind of do it in stages, so I'm not flitting between too many different departments, because then you kind of forget what you're looking at. But yeah, it can get quite intense.
Do you find the same, Kevin?
I'm a little bit more lucky.
I have to filter out all the bad ones.
Yeah, I only need to look at roast prep and that's it.
Nice.
But I do get like maybe 20 to 30 a day just to look at all the student reels. And
wow.
Yeah, it's quite a lot.
It's loads.
When we're hiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What percentage of hires would you estimate come from an artist's passion project? So something they didn't do as group work, but something they clearly did off their own back. I'll go over to Simon first. What do you think, Simon?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think particularly if you're sort of an emerging artist, you know, sort of breaking into the industry, passion projects and group work are going to be they go hand in hand, really. But they do sort of indicate, you know, I suppose the clue is in the name, sort of the passion project, right? You know, where you really want to put the most energy, and what it really is that you find, you know, makes you want to sort of do this every day. You know, that's the key thing. It's interesting, I think, particularly when we meet people who are breaking into the industry. A lot of people will stand in front of you and say, oh, I want to be a generalist. I love doing everything. And it's great to have that ambition, but you know, when you are breaking into the industry, I think you really need to showcase what your real your strongest skill set is first, because that will be probably your foot in the door, if that makes sense. You know, you showcase whether your 2D or your 3D skills in whatever department, and then use that as your first step in. But yeah, so if that means then leaning into your passion project, then that's probably the way you should go.
How about you, Kevin? Do you notice the difference between a passion project and group work?
Budget.
Budget. Time or energy?
Yes, time or energy, and how much time you actually spend on the passion project. I think it is key. Like, there is so many reels, like from students in particular, it's like they don't really spend enough time to look at it properly. So sometimes they're trying to do a composition together. Like you look at the edges, you look at the lighting, it just something is missing. So if it's not good enough, don't show it yet. Like perfect it until you're happy with it.
when you guys review work, would you be happier seeing one highly polished piece versus 5 less polished pieces?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So you hear that? You have permission to not have to pad it out with.
It's quality
with
over quantity every
really
single
is.
time.
I've seen a reel
Yeah.
that's like 10 seconds long. It's no shame in that.
Yeah.
There's that old adage, isn't there, of starting with your best and ending with your best and making the middle mediocre. How do you feel about that as recruiters?
I mean, I'd still try and cram it with all your best work. Like, if you are umming and ahhing about whether something is suitable for your reel, it usually means it's not. Unless you're like really confident and maybe you've had feedback from your peers or people in the industry. But yeah, I think definitely start with your best. Don't kind of work up to finally ending on that. Quite honestly, I might not get to the end of your reel. So it's really important that you start with the good stuff. Obviously mediocre, you know, I would always...
By comparison.
Yeah, of course. But I'd always wonder, like, unless you're really happy with that, is there any point in showing it?
Yeah. When one's working on passion projects, uni work, maybe freelance work, and applying for jobs, are there any techniques or any advice you could give us about avoiding burnout?
I think it circles back round a little bit to treat the job application like a job itself. So that will help you focus and not freak out about that side of things. But almost like setting yourself a mini schedule like you would on an actual project. Mm-hmm. So if you are juggling multiple things, what is a realistic time allowance for each of those things without burning out? You may have to face up to the fact that you can't do all of it. So which one can you maybe step away for, whether that's indefinitely or just for a temporary period? But you're the only person that can recognise when you've reached your limit. You know, we, as employers, yes, we will look out for it, but we rely on people coming to us and going, I'm struggling. So it's making sure that if it's just you dealing with that on your own, that you are recognising, okay, this is too much, I have to let something go. Yeah.
And how about you, Kevin?
I think, like Harriet said, like have a dedicated time, like within a week, like 4 hours, like on Saturday or 4 hours on Sunday. Try to force yourself like a schedule or habit, and always tell your partner or your friends about what you're trying to do, and ask them to keep an eye on you. Like if you're no-show on a dinner party, then that's when you need to stop and just look at your priorities.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. How about you, Simon? What would you advise artists do to avoid burnout when they're working on multiple things and applying for work?
Yeah, again, I think it's, I mean, everyone's covered a lot there already. And I think it's very much about recognizing when you're not feeling 100%, you know, and actually knowing that it's okay to just stop, take a breath and sort of reevaluate what you're doing. If it means making a bit of a change, dropping something for a period of time and just reducing some of the time you're spending on things to look after yourself. I think, you know, it's really important to be able to do that.
I've just thought of something to add to that. You know, if you're dealing with multiple projects from a freelance or a personal perspective, and then you're also applying for jobs, what you also want to make sure is that you're feeling your best should you land that job. So trying to avoid burnout before you've even got a position, because if you go into that exhausted, then you're setting yourself up for a bit of a scary time. Yeah.
It is difficult being an artist and creating when dealing with burnout. For a lot of people who are applying for their first ever job, there's going to be some rejection. How should they handle it? Should they take it personally? Should they not? What's your take on this? We'll start with Simon, because I fear these guys give all the answers, so that it leaves you with nothing to say. So we'll start with Simon this time.
I think anybody who's chosen to become a professional artist in whatever respect, whether you're in visual effects or whether you're going to be a musician or a painter, when you decide to go down that road, one of the things that people are always going to offer you is feedback. And you know, you need to be able to take that feedback. And I think the important thing, obviously, is when you're in a work environment within a studio and things, that feedback is going to be constructive. it's not about trying to break people down or knock you down. It's about sort of helping you improve, and offering you hints and tips as to how you can take what is great work and make it even better. And it's always keeping that in mind. This the feedback and rejections that you get, particularly when you're applying for jobs to start with. If you can get the feedback, and recruiters will always try and give as much feedback as they can, but it can be tricky sometimes if you are dealing with hundreds of applications, at a time. But the important thing is when you do get that feedback, is to take it constructively, and it should always really be delivered constructively as well.
Brilliant advice. Harriet?
I think, something you can do is, before starting to apply, get feedback on your reel and your application kind of as it is. Get someone to kind of look over your CV, your cover letter. Does it read well? Does it make sense? All that sort of thing. Obviously, you've got to be prepared for the fact that if you're asking your peers, they may not feel comfortable kind of giving you that constructive feedback. But as Simon said, it all comes from a good place. Yeah. No one in the industry is here to put you down or belittle your work or your passion or how hard you've worked. It's setting you up to improve and make your application stronger for the next time. And also maybe fill in some of the gaps of things that your application is lacking.
As Kevin, when you were starting out as an artist, did you have to deal with any initial rejection, or were you hired immediately?
Of course.
We rehearsed that.
A lot of rejection, and it's a no on one door. It doesn't mean no to every door.
Yeah.
So keep trying and keep going at it. And that you being rejected by one studio is for a reason. Maybe you're not suitable at that time, or maybe a reel isn't quite what we're looking for, and just improve it as you go and apply again. Yeah.
And if one applies and doesn't hear anything back from you guys, when is it too soon to say, just checking in on my application?
It's hard to sort of say, because it will really depend on how busy we are at the time. In the height of union being busy with interviewing and applications and hiring for roles, I would say it's on average, it will take us 2 weeks to get back to an application. At the moment, as we're a bit quieter and also applications have slowed a little, I'm kind of thinking, this person applied yesterday. Is it too soon to get back to them? So I'm also being very kind of cautious with that, because I feel like if you're too quick, people might not think your application has actually been considered.
Yeah.
But I can assure you, I look at every single application. So I would say 2 weeks minimum, but be prepared it could be longer. It just depends on how busy things are.
It's the same for you, Kevin?
Yeah, around the same timeline. Yeah, don't be afraid to just email and just ask how things are.
Yeah.
You might not get the answer straight away, but it's
no harm
good
in
to
asking.
ask.
And for you, Simon, when is it too soon to get in touch to say any news of my application?
I think you need to give it more than 24 hours, that's for sure. I think...
Please.
Feel free to share horror stories as well. We'd love to hear some.
Oh yeah, I mean, there are plenty of those, but I think as Harriet said, up to 2 weeks is usually a good sort of time frame. That'll have given recruiters and department managers and whoever's reviewing opportunities to sort of go through the cycle, if you like. Again, recruiters do their utmost to try and get back to everybody. So that gives you time to work through everybody in the right way, and if you haven't heard anything back within that sort of 2 weeks or after 2 weeks, then by all means, ping through an email.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, we've skirted around the topic long enough. AI, heard of it? AI tools are popping up everywhere, and it seems to be more and more part of pipelines and the tools that we use. How should artists be approaching it? Should they be ignoring it, leaning into it, a bit of both? What do you think, Kevin?
It's here to stay. Get on a train now before I leave the station. It's a funny one because like in production, it's not really production ready in most cases. Like so we use it for Slapcom, like some sort of copycat roto or Comfy UI, some sort of experimenting, but nothing that is going straight from AI directly to the screen. So don't worry about that just yet. But learn the skills and learn the techniques and what is out there. Like Comfy UI and copycat is a good one to be aware of and to know and practice. Like it's not going to be a essential skills when you're on the job. Like I don't think anytime soon anyway. But yeah, it's good to be aware of it.
And Simon?
Yeah, I mean, as Kevin said, I mean the genie is out of the bottle, right? It's not going back in, and you know I think we need to really just sort of embrace it for what it is in terms of tools that can really sort of enhance workflows and help make people's jobs a bit easier, create efficiencies where possible. It's a topic of conversation. You know, I was at lunch today, even around the lunch table with artists and supervisors. The topic comes up. So yeah, I think don't be afraid of it, and really sort of embrace the tools that you can. And as Kevin said, tools like Comfy UI, Copycat, Stable Diffusion, all of these things, they're out there. You will see roles advertised with certain studios as well. You'll see sort of visual pioneering or generative artists and things like that. So studios are experimenting and they're trying to find ways to incorporate into their workflows and things. But I think it's a long way from being the silver bullet that some people may hope it would be. Do you know what I mean? It's not there by a long way yet.
Yeah. Are you finding the same, Harriet?
I think that, it's a big learning curve for the whole industry, and studios are approaching it at very different paces. There are some studios that have the teams and the pipelines in place to kind of lead and create the workflows that smaller studios like Union can maybe kind of pick up at a later stage. I think it's really important as well that people don't feel like they have to do it. I think there will be studios that continue to be traditional with their visual effects. And if AI really isn't something that you're into, then I think there is a space for you. How long that space exists, that's the big question. But I feel if you're not ready to kind of jump into the world of AI, it's not something that you have to do right now. But I think it is important to follow the progress and see how things do progress.
It's interesting, isn't it, about future-proofing your career?
Yeah.
From your professional experiences, what would you say are the things young animators, visual effects artists, and games artists can do to future-proof their career? For example, I see more and more in animation jobs that are available, knowledge of the mocap pipeline being useful. Is there anything coming up you think it's worthy of investigation?
That's a good question.
Start off with Simon, I think.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? I mean, because the thing is, the industry evolves so quickly. Tools evolve, workflows, pipelines evolve. I think one of the ways you really future-proof yourself is by sort of really trying to understand what's going on around you. Getting your head into the tools and being just read up and maybe trying out a couple of new things here and there. If you get a training license on a new piece of software and that kind of thing, just play around with it, and sort of get your head around how it may fit within a workflow or how it may influence the dependencies within your team or your studio at some point. I think that's probably one of the best ways to do it, is try and stay abreast of the technology as it evolves. But I mean, it's impossible to sit here and say, oh yeah, you must know Unreal 4 or you must know this or you must know that, because
Then holograms.
Yeah, because what's right today might not be right tomorrow.
Yeah. Well said.
We can't top that. Remote work seems to be here to stay. Has that opened up Has it made it easier for people who don't live in big cities to work with you guys?
For us at Union, it comes down to your level. We see a huge benefit in entry-level roles, artists new to the industry, fresh graduates, how important it is having them on site.
Yeah.
You learn by being present, you learn by osmosis. If you're sat at home behind a screen, how are you going to hear those conversations that happen over a cup of tea in the kitchen? You're not there to pick up on those things and be able to contribute or learn from those things that are just happening naturally. I would say it is daunting, you know, if you're kind of not based in the hubs of where the visual effects is happening, of like, how do I do this? You know, it's worth bearing in mind what your options are. There are companies out there that do offer fully remote positions. But there are ones as well that, like Union, we're hybrid. So can you make arrangements to allow you to be present for those on-site days and then you have the rest of your time at home? It is tough. But yeah, for us, having a junior not in the office just doesn't make sense.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
How about at BlueBolt, Kevin?
We are...
Oh!
It's okay, Fig.
We're also quite hybrid focused, and the location is not as important anymore, but you still need to be based in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like it's important for junior roles to be able to come to the office, like to learn from the peers, and that's very important. But actually, half my team is like based in Midland, so they come in maybe once in a full moon and just show themselves. But they still make an effort.
Coffee and
they make an effort to come down. So if they can do it, like so can you.
And how about you, Simon? Do you find for the jobs that you're recruiting for Digital Artists Exchange, there's more remote opportunities, or is it unchanged?
Yeah, it depends on the studios we're supporting. You know, some are a lot more flexible than others. But I'm with Harriet on this as well. I think, you know, particularly as you're entering into the workspace, you know, as an emerging artist. You should be trying to spend as much time as you can around your peers in the building, you know, in the studio. And I know it can be tricky as well, right? Yeah, if you maybe don't live within the sort of catchment area, but if you can even make it work just a couple of days a month and things like that, it really helps with your development and your progress. You know, working within a team, problem solving. And as Harriet said, just even eavesdropping, just hearing what other people are doing, you know, those coffee machine moments are so important, connecting with the team.
I agree. I find the best calls I have with colleagues are the ones we would never have scheduled just by chance.
Yeah.
It's funny, what you're mentioning essentially is a bit of networking as well. And that being the case, are there any events you guys would recommend young artists start attending? To meet more of their community.
As possible. I think a lot of them now are free, which is really amazing. But yeah, that, you know, Access VFX is obviously a long running organisation that really kind of supports with that. And there are so many more popping up as well in and around London, but also further afield. So even if you're not in London and these events aren't on your doorstep, there are things happening around the UK. But yeah, it is just kind of being present and taking the opportunity to go out. Who can I speak to? Who can I show my reel to? Who can I get feedback from? And then keeping in touch with those people. You know, online events as well. You don't even have to be in the location of the event anymore, which is brilliant.
And you, Kevin?
Like the events here.
Yeah.
That was the answer we were going for.
Right answer. Yeah, I think like if you're not in London, there might be a little bit less opportunity, but don't be afraid to start your own. Like there will be people that is within the area, so just make up your own thing.
Are there any specific events you'd recommend? This goes for you as well, Simon. Are there specific networking events you'd recommend, like a 3D meetup or bring your own comp and things things like that?
Yeah, I mean, you have CG 101 in London, which is great, and they also obviously affiliate with Concept 101. Obviously, the escape events are also fantastic. But even events like FMX and that these days, they have a pretty sizable portion of those events online now. So even if you can't get to places like Stuttgart, you can still access the talks and some of the keynotes and things like that. Getting to the events in Europe can be quite pricey, but if you ever get the chance, I'd highly recommend it, because again, it just adds so much to your network, and you get to meet people face to face. It can be a really good experience. I noticed that even in the UK, I think we had Move in Scotland last week, which is an animation focused event. You have the Manchester Animation Festival and things like that. So up and down the UK, there are lots of events going on, and you'll be able to find them being advertised within your local communities and networks as well.
Brilliant. And if you don't, you can always start one. I like that.
Yeah, that was
piece of
good.
advice. And speaking of paddling your own canoe, how do you segue? How do you guys feel about prospecting emails? So you're not recruiting for a job, but someone specifically wants to work at your studio, and they can give you a good reason why. Starting off with Simon, how do you feel about a prospecting email?
I'm all for it. I think if you have if you have a skill set that you want to showcase, and you've researched the studio, and for example, that so maybe the particular strengths, I don't know, in animation or in whatever skill set you have, and you can't see an a role advertised, there is nothing wrong with putting together a really relevant application and sending it in. It does show that you've been thoughtful and done some research, and you're making a good case for why you think you've got the right skill set. But prospecting with just high volume applications going, hey guys, just give us a job, that's obviously not the best way to go about it. It really needs to be, make sure it's focused. Yeah. Make sure it's focused. That's the main thing.
How do you guys feel when you receive prospecting emails?
I don't know. I think it's always good to see someone being proactive and apply for jobs, like even a job is not advertised. And it is always make a good impression for me anyway. It is that it's like, oh, someone sent an email like a while back, like it might be suitable for this job that we have coming up. So you never know what's going to happen. So yeah, do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think they are really good. It's a really nice way to get your enthusiasm for that particular studio across. And that's what can often really stand out. And you never know, I might be about to list the job that you're applying for the next day, and then it's like, right, well done, here we go. Don't even have to bother. So yeah, they're definitely worth doing.
Brilliant. If a studio isn't offering a grad scheme or a proper internship scheme, is it a fruitless endeavour to get in touch and see about going to get some work experience? Or do you think time is best spent doing other things?
We don't have graduate and internship specific schemes. For us, it's come and get a job. That's literally it. It's like there are entry level opportunities. So yeah, you can start as a runner, production assistant, roto prep, or match move, and that's the job you'd be coming in to do. There are studios out there that offer these trainee schemes, and I think it can often come down to personal preference. Everybody learns in different ways at different paces, and coming in on those kind of schemes are often a little bit more gentle than straight into a full-time role, because there is often training plans in place, as opposed to obviously you get trained on the pipeline but then you're on a project. So think about kind of what would work for you as well. If you feel you would benefit from coming in that direction, then put your energy into the companies that can actually provide you with those opportunities.
And how is it at BlueBolt, Kevin? Is there a structured scheme or?
No, I don't think we have a internship scheme, but you can come in and start as a runner, or I think there's no harm to start like even the job title is not relevant to anything. Like just be in the studio, be in the environment, be a sponge, and just learn everything, what the studio does, learn about the pipeline and learn about the process. That's super important to know as a part of your skill set going forward anyway. So yeah, it's a good way to get in, like, but not necessarily be an artist just yet, but it's still good to see what the future environment of yours is going to be like.
It's good advice. It's like entering as just as a receptionist, for example, as long as you're there.
Present, yeah.
How about you, Simon? How would you feel about someone asking to do a work experience gig where it wasn't advertised?
Again, I think it really depends on where you're asking, who, and the studios that you're sort of looking at. As Harriet said, some studios do have programs in place which are pretty structured, and others may be a little bit more sort of, should we say, sort of free flowing with their, actually this person looks interesting, we might be able to, we've got somebody going out on a shoot, let's get them helping with cameras and kit for a week or whatever, and it's what that does, it allows you to just even get that bit of exposure in a production environment, see how people interact and behave in the studio and that kind of thing. But those opportunities, you need to really keep an eye out for them. It's and quite often that could also be one of those where if you make a prospective sort of application, somebody might go, actually, this person looks like they've got some good initiative. We need somebody for a week helping out with this. Let's maybe give them a call. Use your initiative in that respect. But studios like the likes of ILM and Framestore, they have their intern programs, the Launchpad and things like that. So definitely keep an eye out for those plans. I know the likes of Goodbye Kansas has an internship program. They're out there. It's about tuning in to the network and making sure that as and when they're going to be advertised and applying accordingly.
How do you guys feel when someone's writing a cover letter and they're essentially saying, yes, I can do all these technical things you're looking for in an artist, but what really motivates me are some key things about your company, some key specific things. Does that have any sway on their hireability to you?
Yeah, it does for me. I love, tell me how much you love Union. Tell me how much you want to work with us. Like, when you're getting so many applications and, reels can be different, but ultimately they're much of a muchness, it's like the same sort of work that they're trying to show you. And if I'm like, okay, I can offer 3 interviews and I've got 10 applications, those are then the details that I will look for in an application. And if there are 3 people that, jump and shout about Union, then those are the 3 that I'll usually prioritize speaking to. Yeah.
It's the same for you, Kev, at BlueBolt.
I think it shows you've done your research, that you know what we do, like as a studio, what projects we've done, and then how you can maybe add to it. Maybe you can say, I see you've done this screen replacement or something, like, I've done it, like, have you seen my reel? that sort of thing. Just make it more personal and relevant to you.
Yeah.
And Simon, do you find that sort of resonance has a
absolutely
any weight on hireability?
For sure. And if you're applying to a specific studio, and maybe you saw one of the supervisors do a talk the week before, include that in your cover letter. Just a note saying, I saw one of your team show some of the work you did on X, Y, and Z project, found it really inspiring, and things like that. It just shows that you are paying attention and you're really sort of focusing in on where it is you want to be.
Brilliant. Thank you.